Number 3.
A little backstory before we get into things. I grew up in upstate New York, and it only made sense that I would return to my quiet little part of the world after I got out of the Marines in 2007. The only problem is that I didn't have much money, but the good news was that my grandfather had an old pool-behind camper that he told me I could have until I got on my feet. So, being on my own, I decided that I would spend about a year in the pool behind a few acres of woods that I had bought from a friend while I was in the Marines. Taxes had been paid for the year, so the only thing I had to do was pay for gas and propane. I managed to avoid looking like a crazy mountain man by showering and washing my clothes at a local truck stop, and I even got a pretty decent job working security. I filled the rest of my time working odd jobs for extra cash. Alright, now onto the main story. It was mid-April, and I was sitting next to a nice low fire while listening to my battery-powered radio and watching nightfall in the woods. I had gotten myself a nice dinner at the diner down the road, and I didn't have any work for the next few days. Generally speaking, I didn't see anyone in the woods for weeks at a time, so I wasn't expecting it when I heard a scream break the silence. I shot up and grabbed my shotgun out of the small camper and checked the chamber to make sure it was loaded. I stood at the edge of the small clearing and strained my eyes to listen for any sounds. It's generally hard to pinpoint a direction of a noise out in the middle of the woods at night. Luckily though, I heard some shouting and cars door slamming, so I knew that sounds had to be coming from the main vehicle trail a short distance from my campsite. I made my way to the trail as fast as I could in the low light, and before I could get halfway there, I heard another clipped scream to my left. I could hear rustling in the brush, and I slowly made my way over to where I thought the noise was coming from. I came out of the woods right next to a man who had a woman pinned to the ground and another leering man standing just behind him. Shaking from adrenaline, I leveled the shotgun at the guy on top of the woman and growled at him to get off. Now, I'm a pretty big guy, but I have no doubt that the shotgun was the deciding factor in this whole situation. Each of these guys had a solid 30 pounds of muscle on me, and I was 200 pounds, and I was a Marine. I ushered the two idiots back, so I was between them and the woman who was now getting to her feet. It was about now I realized that we had another problem. My cell phone was cheap, and I didn't get reception in the woods, and hers had been broken by these two sickos. There wasn't much I could do other than march these two back to their shitty lifted jeep under the threat of shotgun. I got their license plate number, their names as well, which I was sure were fake, and a description of them and their vehicle. Before the driver got into the vehicle, I lowered the shotgun straight to his crutch. They took off in one direction, and myself and the woman, we made our way back to my campsite. We drove to the DEC station as soon as possible, and we reported the entire incident. It turns out that the guy I was threatening was the young woman's ex-boyfriend. They had all been out having a few drinks when the third wheel in the situation got a little too handsy for her liking. When she said something to her ex-boyfriend, he basically told her to stop being so stuck up and to put out for once. When she refused, the boyfriend took her phone and smashed it on the ground. They both then pushed her into the truck and drove her deeper into the woods. She had waited for them to become complacent before throwing the back door open and jumping out of the Jeep and taking off. Luckily for her, the Jeep was a pile of shit, and the back door, it didn't lock. It was also a stroke of luck that I had happened to be outside when she managed to escape. Fast forward about 7 months, and that woman I helped, she became my wife, and we moved into our first house using the money I'd been living on in the woods to save up. We've been married for 8 years now, and we have 2 kids, a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. I still go out camping in that location every year and hunting, and I haven't seen the Jeep or the potential rapists again. We heard through the grapevine though that they'd been arrested but somehow got off without any actual jail time. I'm assuming they moved either into the city or further away because we haven't seen them again. So, to the 2 potential rapists in the Jeep, I know who you are, and for your sake, you better stay away.
Number 2.
This story is about my dad's ex-girlfriend. Her name is Jessica. Some background on her first. She apparently was a friend of my dad's in high school and rekindled some sort of a relationship between them. My parents are divorced, and at the time of this story, I wasn't allowed to contact my own mother for legal reasons, so I was in my father's care. My dad is a very emotionally abusive person, and growing up, we didn't really talk much. We just kind of fought and screamed at each other. He certainly wasn't father of the year, and he would leave me at home for hours at a time sometimes. He also did this to his girlfriend, Jessica. Jessica wasn't the sweetest person either though, and she had this attitude about her that just screamed, "I'm better than you," and that she was the hottest woman in the world or something. This was weird though, because she really wasn't anything to look at. She would constantly start drama with the other housewives in the neighborhood and gossip about them too. Some days she was a really nice person, but other days she was just as loathsome as my father. She and my dad would constantly fight over the way the other person treated them. I didn't pay attention to it, but it eventually came to a boil. It was the week of my 16th birthday, and my father was in California for business. So I was left with Jessica, the dogs, and my bird Mary. On Friday, the day he would be coming back, I was fiddling with one of the presents we prepared, and it was getting late. I was in my bedroom passing the time until I heard a rustling noise coming from my dad's room. And then a weird groaning, screaming noise. I was legitimately worried because those noises were from Jessica, and I thought that she was hurt. What I didn't know, however, was that she'd been drinking. She then started screaming like a fucking banshee or something, and I was afraid to go near the room, so I called out, "Hey Jessica, are you alright in there? Do you need anything?" Apparently, that was an invitation for her to come running at me, a defenseless girl facing off against a 50-year-old woman. She started hitting me and trying to scratch at me. I managed to grab her wrists and tried to get her to tell me why she was doing this. She looked at me dead in the face, and with a low, cold voice she growled, "I'm going to fucking kill you." I had enough. I pushed her off of me and raced into my bedroom, locking the door. Being young, I didn't realize at the time that I should have called the cops, but after a moment or two, I heard my father coming through the door. He must have felt the atmosphere in the air because he called out,
"What the hell is going on?"
I came rushing out in tears, telling him that it was Jessica, that she came out like a madman, slapped me, and threatened to kill me. I was shaking and terrified. I screamed at him and told him that I wanted her out of the house now. I was truly afraid. He just stormed past me and went up the stairs to their room. I don't remember much, but I assume she tried to blame it on me, like I was the one that attacked her or something. All I could remember is that the cops weren't called and we just went to bed. That, however, isn't the end of the story. The next morning, she came into my room as I was watching TV, asking for forgiveness. She was acting as if the whole thing, it was nothing. I told her no, but Dad of course demanded that I forgive her, so I had no other choice. Unfortunately, this would usher in behaviour of her doing horrible things to me and then acting like it had been nothing. This went on for some time, but obviously she and my father broke up and they went on their separate ways. She tried to keep in touch with me though, and I was nice to her out of politeness. It wasn't until I was in my freshman year in college that she would start up again. I had Facebook at the time, but I didn't really use it much because I didn't really like it too much. Plus, I was busy and I barely ever checked it. When I did finally check it though, I received a nasty, childish message from her, all because I didn't accept her friend request. She proceeded to tell me that I was just as nasty and immature as my father, that he and I used her as a slave, even though, apparently, I was her bitching buddy, as she liked to complain about my father and all the other women in the neighborhood. Also, something that really struck a note with me was when she said that if it wasn't for her, that I wouldn't have been in college. The last time I checked, all she did was tell me the school's name. I did the rest. She even called me in the middle of my Drawing 1 class, just to bitch at me. So I proceeded to email her. I told her to never contact me again, and to never contact my dad either, that I didn't appreciate her immaturity, and that I was only nice to her because of my father. Other than that, I never wanted anything to do with her. Since that message, for 2 years, she's tried contacting me on social media, acting as if nothing happened and that we were good friends. I even tried emailing her again, telling her to leave me alone, but she just said I was being crazy. I had since got into contact with my biological mother and told her everything that happened. She just flipped and told me that if she contacted me again, she'll threaten her with a lawsuit. But one day, just a few weeks ago, I was on my YouTube account and I got a message, and lo and behold, it was her. All it said was, "Hello, nice blue hair." I had had enough and I told her off and then called my mother in tears. She was fuming that this woman wouldn't leave me alone, and she just wouldn't get the hint that I didn't want to talk to her. All my mother told me was that she was going to settle this once and for all. Since then, I haven't gotten any messages for weeks. But I know my mother didn't do anything illegal. She probably just scared her off. At least, I hope so.
Number 1.
I'm a 28-year-old mother of a 4-year-old, and right now, I'm in a relationship with a man who is not my daughter's father. 3 years ago, about 8 months after I had left my daughter's father due to abuse, I started to feel strange. I felt increasingly paranoid and almost as if I were being watched for weeks. One night, my sister asked if she could borrow my car because she was having issues with hers. I told her this was fine as long as she brought it back before 4 AM because this was the time I take my boyfriend to work. She said that this should be okay. Hours pass by and I wake up to banging and screaming outside of my window. I jolted awake, heart racing because I had no idea what was going on. I rushed to the front door and continued hearing screaming and banging when I steadied myself and I realized it was my sister who was screaming and banging on the door and window. I let her in, saying,
"What the hell is going on?"
She says,
"Hannah, Donnie's outside and in the bushes by your window. He's outside right now."
I said,
"What the fuck?"
I looked out the window from my porch and saw my daughter's father standing there, and he had no shirt, no shoes, and he was sweating as if he'd been out there running all night. I immediately rushed to call the police and check on my daughter. I explained to the dispatcher that he's been abusive towards me in the past and that he hadn't been into any other drugs other than marijuana before I left him. This night though, he did seem like he was high on something. The police were there in 5 minutes, guns drawn and yelling for him to get down. He refused, claiming that I had told him to come over and to see our daughter. Mind you, I had not spoken to him the entire 8 months after I left him, and my daughter didn't even know him at this point. And it was 4:30 in the fucking morning. My nephew was asleep in the back area of our house, and he was seriously ready to kick some ass for his mother finding my daughter's father in our bushes. I told the police that I had not spoken to him and that he's lying. They basically did nothing but slapped him with a trespassing citation and told him to leave. The police stayed to make sure he left, but he didn't. He acted as if he were leaving and came back to the house to talk. I threatened to call the police again if he didn't leave, and this time he left. Fast forward to the next day. My neighbour is our gardener, and as usual, he was cutting our grass. He passes by the bush that Donnie was hiding in, and he saw a medium-sized steak knife hidden there. My body literally went cold. It's as if the last few weeks of me feeling as though someone was watching me and following me started to flash through my mind. He was there at that particular time because he knew I'd be leaving the house to take my boyfriend to work. I have an idea of what he was planning to do to me, and it sent me pretty much into a hysteria. That man, he was going to kill me, and who knows what he could have been planning on doing to my daughter. I wish I could say that he got locked away or that he left or that we moved or something, but all of that would just be lying. He's still out there, and I'm still here. G'day mates, it's Busta here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. Funnily enough, I actually had an ex-girlfriend that was pretty crazy as well. We actually met at the gym, but it just didn't work out. I'm here all week guys, I'm here all week. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared this story for us all here, and I hope you're all doing well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. And as always, keep them coming guys, as this channel relies upon your stories to continue. Also, please do me a favour and just state in your email what your story is about in the description, and also provide me with a short written statement of consent just so that I can be above board with everything. And also remember to tell me in the email if you'd like to remain anonymous, and please change any names if you don't want particular names to be shared. So guys, don't forget, I'm looking for Christmas stories over the next week or so. I've had some come in, which is great, and I may be able to do a video soon. But if you have a story to send in, please get it in soon, as I'll be putting the video together soon. But remember guys, even if you don't have this type of story, please continue to send your stories in anyway. And as always, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second gaming channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks for always tuning in guys, for liking, sharing, commenting, and all that good stuff. And as always, I'll see you mates in the next one.